Pausa rapidinho agora para falar de dica de ouro para os papais e mamães. Depois de experimentar a nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha, tudo ficou ainda melhor pro meu filho. É a única com canais em X que se adaptam aos movimentos, com 2 vezes proteção noturna e cintura elástica que se adapta ao corpinho do bebê, além de ser super fácil de colocar e tirar. Praticidade pura. Então guarda essa dica. Nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha. Bebê, estamos juntos nessa, mais do que nunca. Agora curta seu podcast.
This weekend, I'm committing to it. I will send y'all pictures of it, but I'm not going to talk about it here because I don't want other people to know about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, what the heck is this place? Can you give us a hint?
It's nothing like super special. It just speaks to my soul.
It's Publix. You're going to the food store. You're going to spend an extended period there.
I was going to say, you're going to that strip club with the lady that crushes beer cans between her boobies.
The Claremont.
Yeah.
Hey, pals, and welcome to Millennial, the home of pretend adulting and real talk. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
I'm Pamela.
And our friend Micah is back on the podcast this week. Welcome back, Micah.
Thanks. Excited to be back. Is it a presidential election year? Because that's only when I come on.
I feel like that's the trend.
Well, we got a debate in 2 weeks. We have to debate what we're going to do about that week's episode. Yeah. Well, Micah is the co-host of MuggleCast and also the co-host of a brand new podcast called What the Hype that all of us here on the panel, plus MuggleCast co-host Eric, are a part of. And we will tell you about that show in a moment. What's new, Micah? What's on your mind? Anything you want to get off your chest here at the top of the show? I'm sure you'll derail numerous portions of the conversation today, but do you want to get anything off your chest right at the start?
Wow. I mean, what a nice way to welcome somebody to your show by saying they're just going to derail the conversation.
I know how you operate. I'm ready.
But it's not planned, though. That's the best part about it, is that, you know, it's just nice and off the cuff. But no, I'm really excited for the new podcast that we have worked together to create. And apparently so are people at my office, because I had mentioned in a meeting last week, they were going around and they were saying, you know, what are some of your professional goals? What are some of your personal goals for these next couple of months? They're very much aware of MuggleCast and are some of them have listened to episodes in the past, but I mentioned, I teased What the Hype. I didn't go into detail. I didn't want to jinx it in any way. And so this week, actually, one of my coworkers kind of outed me right there because she said, by the way, the podcast Micah mentioned last week is now out.
Oh.
And so we got to a point, and it was nice. And we got to a point where they started to play the intro music.
Oh my God.
No way.
I would hate that. I would so hate that.
The person who was playing it clearly listens to podcasts on 1.5 speed. So not only were they playing the song, but they were playing it at 1.5 speed. So
tell me all about your latest obsession. What the hype?
It was Alvin and the Chipmunks singing
exactly.
our theme song.
Take me for a fan stand.
But I will say, I did get a lot of feedback in the room. People are excited to listen. Some of the episodes that I described, especially the one about fitting pop culture into your life, people seem really excited about that. And some people who have listened to a few episodes already. One was The Boys, which apparently you all called me out on. I heard that
we did.
From one of my coworkers. But also they're excited to listen to Bridgerton. So we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're getting people interested in series, especially with The Boys, that they hadn't watched yet. So that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Listen to the episode, see if you like it, and then give it a try.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Micah, because What the Hype is a new podcast, and it's a class.
Okay, please read the description.
Some listeners might not know yet. This is the class you always wanted, but you were never offered in school. And each week, we are educating each other and you, the listener, on today's biggest books, shows, movies, and more. And like Micah was saying, no matter your experience level, there's something here for everyone. So if you're a total noob, we'll enlighten you, we'll give you the basics of a fandom. And then if we're doing a multi-episode series on a particular fandom, we'll get deeper as each episode is published. But our goal, and, this is going to be a challenge for us, but it's a fun challenge that we'll try to make work, is making even the deeper cut episodes feel accessible to everybody. Because we know not everybody wants to listen to 3 episodes on Bridgerton if they haven't watched any episodes of Bridgerton. But hopefully we can have an engaging enough conversation where you want to learn more and you feel like you're a part of the fandom just by listening. So that's kind of our goal with What the Hype. And it's available across all podcast platforms, of course. Now, we are releasing episodes through the MuggleCast feed. So if you already listened to MuggleCast, you'll see the What the Hype episodes in there. However, MuggleCast is a family-friendly show. So we are publishing a second feed. And if you don't listen to MuggleCast, the second feed is probably for you. It's called What the Hype WTF edition. And this version of the show is uncensored. So if we say fuck, it's going to be in the WTF edition, but not the MuggleCast edition. So we don't get any emails from parents. And of course, when we're talking about like a character sitting on the face of another character in, in The Boys, we can keep that in the WTF edition.
That happens in Harry Potter, though, doesn't it?
That's fan fiction. I'm really excited for some of the stuff we're going to be recording next. Like you alluded to, we already did primers for Bridgerton and The Boys. And I'm super excited because season 4 of The Boys and season 3.5 of Bridgerton are both dropping this Thursday. So I really feel like it's our own Barbenheimer moment. Like Boyserton. Is that what we decided?
Yeah,
Boyserton. Yeah. And so I am so excited because not only do I get both of these shows that I'm super into dropping on the same day, we're going to get to turn around and record reactions to them within the following week or two and really dive deeper into the series while also reacting to the new episode drops. So I'm really, really excited about it. I know we've been wanting to do something like this for a really long time. I mean, this show was, 6 months in the making? We really started talking about it back in November, if I'm being totally honest.
I feel like it's been years.
Yeah.
I think conceptually it's been there for years, but we finally made the decision to move forward with it, I would say probably in the last 6 months, where we really started working towards getting it to be a real thing.
Meeting regularly, that helped a lot.
Yeah.
And just settling on
just what I need, another meeting.
Just settling on a format that felt original, because we know there's tons of pop culture podcasts out there. So let's make something that'll appeal to our existing base plus a wider audience. And the sky is really the limit with the show. That's what's so exciting about it. We can branch off into all different areas of pop culture. Like, Pam, you're plotting a smut episode, right? We're very excited for the smut episode.
Yeah, it's another brainchild from myself and Laura, because we often text about our gripes and our excitement over smut. And we really appreciate having a place now where we can have that discussion and send it out into the void that is the internet. But yeah, that is one of the things that I'm most excited about too, because obviously we do cover some pop culture on Millennial, and that's a great space for us to do it. But we don't always have the space on this show to dive into everything we want to talk about. So it's really fun to have a space to do that now. And also, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, Andrew, but the way we've set up the show is that there's 5 of us hosting, but we're not all on each episode, which is really fun because firstly, it would be a lot of work if we all had to prepare for every episode. But then also that means that I get to listen to the shows that I can't be on, or that I, for whatever reason. So this morning when I was out on my run, I was listening to the Fitting Pop Culture episode and I was like, wow, this is really good. And then I was like,
really?
Love my friends. They're so talented. Like, this is such a great chat. Yeah. So it's really fun to.
Meanwhile, I get called out on the other, so.
It was mostly just because we were like, this feels like your brand. Like something that you would want to watch.
I'm like actually shocked that you haven't watched it. And I really think you should, because you would like it. It is right up your alley.
In contrast, one of my friends was also checking out the show, and they were watching on YouTube. They really like the video podcast element too. They're like, I was listening to the Bridgerton episode, and like somebody commented like that they were surprised that your co-host Micah was on the Bridgerton episode. Is that like not on brand for him? And I was like,
no, definitely not.
I was like, listen, we were surprised he wanted to do it, but we were excited that he wanted to join us. So it's great.
But I think that's the point, is also getting to do episodes on topics that you otherwise normally wouldn't.
Right.
Because maybe you're not I'm not a diehard fan of Bridgerton like you or others are, but I think it's cool to be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Then you give the perspective of somebody who's coming in like myself, who's just a casual viewer. That's really what I'm looking most forward to about this particular project that we're doing together.
Yeah, fully agree. Pam did mention, and this is a first for us, full episodes are on YouTube, on camera. Full episodes on YouTube. And we're editing these shows a little differently too, which has been a fun new experience for me. So yeah, check it out wherever you listen to podcasts. Or if you're somebody who loves video podcasts, there's lots of people like that out there. Head over to YouTube and you can find the username is What the Hype Podcast. Everything is available on whatthehypepodcast.com. So maybe get started there. By the way, this new show is being funded by the support of Millennial patrons and MuggleCast patrons. We don't have another Patreon right now for What the Hype. We're just keeping things a little simpler right now with this podcast. So thank you so much for listening to all or any of our shows. And if you support us on Patreon, we really, really, really appreciate that too, because your support has gotten us to this, a third podcast. And my closing thought is we would not launch another podcast, let alone one about pop culture, if we weren't really serious about it. We're not going to waste time putting together a new show if we're not committed to it. We're very committed to this and very excited to have this new baby, as Micah described it.
Yes. The unexpected third child.
I mean, there really was quite a gestation period when you think about it. I don't think we took this long.
Was it 9 months?
Close. I mean, I don't think we took this long to launch any show we've ever done, ever.
That's a good point. That's
yeah, we put
true.
a lot of thought into this one.
Well, we thought we would give people a little taste of What the Hype by doing a sort of What the Hype mini episode in today's episode, right, Pam?
Yeah. So it was a big week for us personally, and also a big week for Hunger Games fans as well. And this is because Scholastic and Lionsgate announced on June 6th that a Hunger Games prequel from Susan Collins is officially on the way. So this is a new prequel, not tied to The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which, has been out for a while now. So the new prequel is called The Hunger Games: Sunrise on the Reaping. And the book is coming out next year on March 18th. And then a movie adaptation of the book is going to follow shortly on November 20th, 2026. So they kind of hit us with a double release here, which was kind of crazy. I don't think anybody was really expecting this, but I'm sure that fans of this franchise that have been holding out hope for more, we're really excited about this. So a little bit of context here as to what you can expect from Sunrise on the Reaping. This story is set 24 years prior to the events of the first Hunger Games novel, and it picks up in Panem on the morning of the Reaping for the 50th annual Hunger Games, which is also known as the Second Quarter Quell. And two interesting points that I want to bring to your attention about this specific Hunger Games specifically is that the twist for the Quarter Quell that year was that there were twice the number of tributes that were reaped. So 2 boys and 2 girls from each district, making a total of 48 tributes. And also, this is the games that Haymitch won. And this is one of the stories that fans have been asking for, unlike the President Snow origin story.
So he would win this one.
So it's kind of cool that, she's giving the fans what they've been asking for 4 years at this point.
Can I ask, is there only one winner?
Yes.
On each side? There's not two winners on each side.
No, that would be too nice of the Capitol, I think.
Yeah.
So first of all, it does rub me the wrong way that they announced a new Hunger Games book and movie on the same day. And it seems like at this point, because of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and now this Haymitch movie, that Suzanne Collins and Lionsgate have a great relationship. They seem to be very happy with how Ballad went. So now they're ready to do another one, because I think something very similar happened with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, where a book was announced and a movie was announced, maybe not the same day, but very shortly after. Now, this announcement, book and movie, both announced the same day, it rubs me the wrong way because it just reeks of corporate greed. It's like Suzanne is writing this book for the purpose of it being adapted into a movie. So that just feels uncomfortable to me. Why not just wait to announce the movie? Why not wait 6 months? Why jump straight to adapting it? On the other hand, I'm looking forward to it. I just hope it's not as long as the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes book, because that was a drag.
So long. You and I famously did not like this book. I think you famously did not finish this book.
Yeah, it's very famous. I did not finish the book.
Which honestly, I'm jealous. I don't know why. It's because I hadn't made my resolution yet to just stop reading things I don't like. So
the movie was great, though. The movie was long.
The movie was good.
And it was structured a little strange, especially in the second half, but it was good. So I'm looking forward to this.
Laura and Micah, are you guys excited? Did you tune into the last prequel at all? Were you even fans originally of the original trilogy?
So I was a fan of the original trilogy, read the books, saw the movies, didn't really engage with it beyond that. So I haven't read Ballad or seen the movie. I plan to see the movie because I do want to be up to speed on it, especially with this new book and movie coming out next year and the year after. I did want to ask y'all, though, because I know there's some feelings, and I've seen them on the internet, definitely on TikTok. A lot of people kind of mocking. I guess Suzanne Collins at one point said she would only write another book if she had something else to say. And people are like, or unless there's a movie deal attached to it. And so I can totally get that. But I guess I'm just wondering, did y'all feel like Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was written just to turn it into a movie? And is that why you didn't particularly enjoy the book? Did it feel forced or rushed? No,
my issue with it was that she tried to... The book was written in a way that's meant to have you humanize Snow. I don't think that she definitely didn't want people to come out the other end being like, oh yeah, he was a precious angel baby and nothing was his fault. But just because you have to extrapolate the human before you get the monster, that's kind of what made me uncomfortable about it. And it was so hard to keep reading because the whole time it's just this guy is a piece of shit and we know what he grows up to be. So I just don't care. When he's upset, I don't care.
For me, same as Laura, I read the original series. It's somewhere behind me here, but I did not read the prequel and I haven't seen the film. And it made me think to ask the question, does everyone love a good origin story? Because to the point about Snow, I feel like oftentimes we know what's going to happen. So that also takes away a little bit from going back, as opposed to with the main story. Of course, if we read it, we know how the film is going to play out. But there's a little bit more mystery, a little bit of the more of the unknown with the original text than there is with going back and, let's say, reading a prequel on Snow or on Haymitch. Sure, there might be little surprises along the way, but you generally know how things already play out. So I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. It made me think, Pam, when you were talking earlier about Anakin Skywalker, you know inevitably what's going to happen. Are you really interested in how he got there?
I think it depends on how strong the character is.
Yeah.
And again, whether the prequel is a vehicle to actually add something to the franchise in terms of new characters and new story arcs that can be built off of, or if it's just a matter of plugging in the earlier piece of the history to sell some tickets.
And to that correlation you made about Anakin Skywalker, for example, I think that, well, famously, episodes 1 through 3 of Star Wars were not very beloved. I feel like they've kind of come into their own over the course of the last maybe 10 years or so. But even when they were first coming out, I think that what made them so compelling is that there were lovable characters that we knew that were a huge part of the story. So like the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, for example, it's a huge one, right? So you're invested in how that works out. You're invested in the fact that he's falling in love with Padme, who is like the mother of Luke and Leia. So like there's more there than just with Snow. There were some good touchstones for characters that we had met before, but I don't think there was anybody there that was like compelling enough for us to like love going into the story. And I think that that's what made it a little bit difficult.
Yeah. Hey, Mitch, a beloved character. You know, I think I'm looking through his Wikipedia page, on the Hunger Games wiki, and there's some details about his time in the 50th Hunger Games, but this stuff is just glossed over in the core series. It's not extrapolated on. So I think it'll be interesting to see his story, similar to how with like the Harry Potter series, we've heard about the big duel between Dumbledore and Grindelwald that led to Ariana's death, but we never got to see it. A big hope with Fantastic Beasts was that we finally were going to see it. That obviously is not happening at this point. But I think there's reasons why it can be exciting for listeners or for fans to go back and actually see some of these scenes played out in greater detail after they were teased in the core series. I will add, Suzanne Collins did share a statement when this new book and movie were announced. I still hate even saying that. So again, the title's Sunrise on the Reaping, and Colin said, with Sunrise on the Reaping, I was inspired by David Hume's idea of implicit submission, and in his words, the easiness with which the many are governed by the few. The story also lent itself to a deeper dive into the use of propaganda and the power of those who control the narrative. The question, real or not real, seems more pressing to me every day.
Oh.
So she's also referencing current politics, it sounds like, the current political climate. Some of this sounds Hunger Games-y to me, like the core Hunger Games series.
Well, real or not real is a huge part of the final book, you know, because Peeta gets brainwashed, and the whole time he and Katniss are together, he has to ask her real or not real. So she's already kind of hinting that we're going to see a little bit more of what we already know brought in, and I think.
I don't really have a problem either with what Collins is doing here. And there was a quote mentioned earlier. If she has a successful franchise and she wants to continue to monetize it, good for her. Like, the people who speak out against it, like it's her project, it's her baby to do with as she pleases. That said, though, I do think there is something to be said for kind of bleeding a series dry. And we've seen examples of that. You know, you can't just let the original work stand on its own. You have to go and do prequels. You have to go and do follow-ups. You have to do spinoffs. It's never good just enough by itself. And that's where I think some of the story, some of the characters, some of the fun of it all starts to get a bit diluted.
Yeah. And it is interesting how it seems like of the big three of the past decade or two, Harry Potter, Twilight, Hunger Games, it's very interesting that the Hunger Games is the one to seemingly be the only one successfully pulling off spinoffs right now. Harry Potter tried Fantastic Beasts, didn't go so well. They're letting it die.
Fantastic bust.
Hey, it's not dead. It's parked. Okay.
Parked. Yeah, we're letting it breathe for a while. Twilight, I remember hearing at one point they wanted to do some sort of like Wolfpack spin-off TV series.
That sounds familiar.
Hunger Games, okay, they did Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. We were like, oh, this is weird with it starring Snow. it did well, made $337 million worldwide. And now they're doing it again. Lionsgate seems to be very happy with how it went the last time because they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're like, Suzanne's announcing a book and we are immediately committing to a movie adaptation. I mean, what if the book is shit? I guess they could drop it, but...
I think that Songbirds and Snakes was really the test here, right? Especially because she released it so long after the initial trilogy wrapped up. But I also think that she picks interesting years to release these Hunger Games installments because we got Songbirds and Snakes in 2020, which, how dystopian to read something like that through COVID. And she's releasing this next one like the year after America will have had its election. So I think that that's not like the coincidence of that is not lost. I don't think that like Susan Collins could have predicted a pandemic, but I definitely think she was probably, inspired by Trump taking office in 2016, and like probably writing through his presidency. So, yeah.
And just to add what Justin said in the Discord about Potter being on a different level, I agree with that. I feel like a lot of the success of Twilight and the Hunger Games was predicated on the success of Harry Potter, and nothing will touch that level of success probably for another several decades. I don't think we'll see something like it again in our lifetime, just in terms of the popularity.
I partly agree with that, but just living through the Twilight and Hunger Games fandoms as well, these fans were diehard. It was the same playbook. The midnight movie releases, midnight book releases, the fan podcasts, the fan websites. It was passionate. I know numbers to numbers, it might not be as big as Harry Potter, but very similar broad strokes, let's say, in terms of the structures of the fandom.
I think it is because, to Micah's point, like Harry Potter made the playbook. So I think it was very easy for other franchises to follow suit as soon as they got a bit of traction.
That's my point. What are the chances that, let's just say, a majority of those individuals would have picked up Twilight or the Hunger Games if they hadn't picked up Harry Potter first?
And we're starting to see something similar happen with Fourth Wing. I think Fourth Wing is also playing a very smart, similar playbook. They're bringing back midnight releases. I'm sure when the movie comes out, they'll try and do something similar as well. Or is it a TV show? I can't remember now. I think it might be a TV show. So it might be a bit of a moot point.
On Amazon?
Yeah. But like the fact that they did midnight releases for the newest book, like that to me was very telling of their marketing strategy for how they're trying to position that series.
Michelle is saying a moment of silence for the Divergent series fans right now.
R.I.P.
Yeah. And you know what?
God.
I think that one partly flopped because so many people were burnt out on dystopian tales because of Hunger Games.
But we're living in a resurgence right now. Like the Twilight Renaissance is still, it's older now, but it's still going strong. And I think that kind of ushered in a new love for the Hunger Games, or like a resurgence of love for that series as well. So it's a good time for that. Even for like the Potter series, people are just nostalgic for touchstones from their childhood. And I don't really blame them because there's so much bad in this world. It's nice to have things that are comforting to kind of soothe you through that.
Yeah. What's old is new.
Yeah. It's vintage. It's hip.
I know. And this is totally off topic for these franchises. But Pam, you and I were even talking about Eminem's music video for his new single Houdini, and how it's basically just like rebooting the Without Me video from like 2002. And he's basically just going through those motions again, except much older.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of commentary in that, but I was just like, what the nostalgia factor is just crazy here. And it's really wild to be at this age and see these things that were really popular and had huge fan bases when we were young circling back around, and they like scratch the nostalgia itch for us, but they're also bringing in a new generation of fans, which I think is really cool at the end of the day.
Okay, well, we are going to take a quick break, and then we are going to discuss what name we have decided to call the listeners. There was a hint at the top of the show, and then we're going to talk about the concept of third spaces and the benefits. we were discussing a few weeks ago. We need a name for the listeners. We just can't call them listeners. We can't just call patrons. We need something more original. And we did a couple of polls. And within the last week, we launched a finalist poll. And the choices were avocados, avocados, millies, and then this fourth one was kind of a wild card. And we put it in because Rebecca in our Facebook group suggested it, and we thought it was so cute. Pals, Pam, Andrew, Laura, or in the case of today's episode, palms, because Micah's here.
Or lamps.
Whoa.
Wow.
Wait, time for another poll.
I know.
Those were the 4 contenders, and the winner was Pals. 52% of participants voted for Pals.
Surprisingly wholesome.
I know.
Yeah, whereas without Pals, in the original poll, avocados and avocados were neck and neck. So Pals really changed things. And that is the name for listeners. Henceforth, you are our pals. It does work really well. It is super cute.
It does.
Yeah.
I vote for that too.
Thanks, y'all.
You couldn't really go and say you want to hang out with your avocado hose.
I mean, you could.
You could, but I mean,
It's very niche.
yeah.
Is it?
Although it's creative.
Yeah, it's fun.
Just imagining like bachelorette parties, sometimes they'll go matchy with like slogan shirts. Just imagine a group of people pulling up to brunch with avocado shirts. Kind of works.
Your very special listeners can be referred to that way. How about that?
Ooh. Oh, that could be like if we ever launch a new tier, we
Yeah,
can call them
tier.
the avocados.
Maybe we could just rename the executive producer tier avocados.
Ooh, executive producers. What do you think of that? You're the executive producer. You decide.
We can start a poll. You vote.
Poll.
Another poll.
Millennial votes 2024.
We're just trying to be the new Pew Research Center,
If only.
Pals of Pew. So that settles that. And, well, we'll come up with some merchandise at some point. But thank you all who participated in the poll. And thank you to Rebecca for coming up with that. Whenever we come up with some merchandise, we will send you at least a shirt, Rebecca. So I wanted to talk today about the concept of third spaces because their benefits are plentiful, but they can be difficult to find. And the availability of third spaces has evolved over the years, especially post-pandemic. First of all, the phrase third space was coined in 1989 by sociologist Ray Oldenburg, and this is a space you frequent besides your home and work. The third space can help combat loneliness. It's a place where communities gather, but you aren't necessarily conversing with other people. You're simply crossing paths with other people of varying backgrounds and identities you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And studies have even shown that simply developing acquaintance-like relationships, being in the presence of others, is enough to foster feelings of belonging. And our parents probably put us into third spaces as kids. If home was space 1 and school was space 2, then space 3 was something like Little League or Bowling League or camp or church or weekly friend hangouts. But then as we got older and as we got busier, or maybe as a result of the pandemic, maybe we don't visit third spaces anymore and we might be missing out on the benefits.
Yeah, I was going to coffee shops a lot pre-pandemic just to get out of the house because, working from home gets lonely and it gets monotonous. And I had a good little routine going and it was a lot of fun, but then COVID hit and a lot of those spaces shut down. So it's funny because in the last few months, I've been getting back in the habit of working out of the house at least one day a week. And I've been choosing to go to the library instead because it's great. It's free and they always have high-speed internet, which is nice. But it's been like, it's almost like a habit you have to create for yourself to go frequently or, instead of just like staying cooped up in the house. So I found that really interesting. That it's kind of been hard to get back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was a lot easier to be in the habit of going to third spaces when I was going into an office every day, because you're already out of the house. It's really easy to say, hey, on the way home, I'm going to stop and get dinner with friends, or I'm going to get a drink, or I'm going to grab coffee with somebody, or go see a movie or do something. But I will say it's a lot harder to convince yourself to go out and do those things when you're working from home most of the time. And I'll just say in general, post-COVID, when I think about the amount of things that I would do sort of out and about with friends, those things have become more things that we do at home. Like, I would much rather, if we're going to have friends to hang out with and we're going to grab dinner and watch a movie, most of the time we end up coming over here, renting a movie we want to watch and ordering takeout. Like, I would rather do that than actually go to a restaurant and go to a movie theater. It's more fun. It's more comfortable, I feel, at this point in time, to do it that way. But it is a pretty significant change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say what's interesting for me is being back at work more regularly. I don't find myself as interested in going out and doing things as I did pre-pandemic. And I think a lot of that is the result of conditioning of the pandemic, which would, I would love to, I'm sure there is data out there about how pandemic life has impacted people to the point where they've actually become more isolated as a result of being, quote unquote, forced to be isolated during that period of time. But I'm trying to do more. I'm trying to get out more and frequent more places like I did pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, it was probably going and grabbing drinks with friends on the weekends or going out after work just to have a good time, to decompress a little bit.
And what are you trying to do now? Like, trying to do the same things or something different?
I'd be open to suggestions, honestly.
I'm right there with you. I was reflecting on this as I was looking over the doc today, and I feel like podcasting is my third space. And I love y'all so much. But when I had that realization, I was like, oh my God, like, my life is my 9 to 5, and then I'm usually turning around to do something for the pods. And I love the pods. I get so much out of them, but there's something missing. I need to add something.
Yeah, I was going to be a supportive friend and say, that's very nice. Thank you. But I don't accept that. Go do something else.
Do you think part of it could also just be the expense of third spaces? Now, some of them you could certainly argue you can do on the cheap or for free, but some of the other ones that were mentioned, require some money, especially if you're going to do them regularly.
No, it's true. And if you go to, say, a coffee shop, you're expected to continue spending too. If you're going to spend an extended period of time there, or a bar, same thing. You can't just get one drink if you're going to be spending a couple hours there. I mean, I guess you could, but
that's kind of an American thing. But
what? Having to continue spending? Yeah. No, I get that. But, or like, okay, let's look at like a restaurant. Like,
but you're
once you
right.
Stop ordering food and drink, the waiter wants you out of there because they want to get another table going. So yeah, I think the expense is a factor. You think about going to the movies. That's very expensive. Just look at like a family of 4 going out to a movie theater. That's going to be at least $100 these days, including concessions. So it is very costly. The pandemic point is interesting too. Micah, you mentioned, I wonder if there's some data out there. This doesn't exactly answer your question, but the Survey Center on American Life found that 56% of Americans in 2021 said they had a third space that they frequent, but that is down from 67% in 2019. So there was a 11% drop off pre and sort of post pandemic. So yeah, I think it's difficult for people to get back into the flow of things when you do get so used to being at home, and certainly home entertainment is in a great space right now with everything streaming. We have better TVs, we have better sound systems. Why bother going out when we can do it all at home for cheaper? But I'll push back on what Laura said. Having friends over, that's definitely a lot of fun. But is that a third space when home is technically the first space? Like, sure, you're bringing friends in, so I guess it's a different vibe. It is a different vibe. But can that be accepted as a third space?
Well, I guess it's this third space for your friends. Like, you've created a third space for them.
Poor Laura. She's making a third space for others.
Do they reciprocate?
No, I mean, honestly, I don't think it's a third space.
Assholes.
If you're the host, because you're the one having to prep for people to come over. And like,
Yeah. It's work.
I enjoy having people over, but I definitely also stress about it. I'll be like, oh my God, like we got to clean and we have to get all these things done before they get here, you know? So yeah, I wouldn't consider that a third space. This is honestly, can I make a New Year's resolution in June?
Ooh,
Sure.
So this is for 2025?
No, like for 2024.
Okay.
I'm 6
All right.
months late, but that means I have 6
It's okay.
months left.
Oh, this is big. Okay, hold on. Let me
Yeah.
mark this clip so Chloe can grab it later.
Please
and we
do.
can hold you accountable. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to find something.
Oh,
I'm going to do something else.
okay.
I have some ideas that I can run by y'all here in a little bit when we get to that point.
Is travel considered a third space?
See, I guess I see third spaces as
If you travel enough, I guess.
right, because you're obviously at home a lot, you're at work a lot. So what's another place that you can be? I would say weekly or every other week, maybe.
Like a local haunt, right? Kind of. Yeah, something you can do in the mundane. Okay, got it.
To Laura's example, though, I would consider that to be a third space, though, because it sounds like what third spaces really are about is creating community, right? Creating connection with other people, which is something that presumably we all lost for the most part during the pandemic, but we need, right? Like humans thrive on connection with each other. That's been our nature, our history.
Other factors that have made finding a third space more difficult, we mentioned the cost and having to continue to spend. Also, hostile architecture in a place like a park. They try to make it uncomfortable to enjoy a park for long periods of time. I think I've spoken with Pam about how there's definitely some chairs at coffee shops that are purposely uncomfortable so you can't sit there for a long period. For example, my closest Starbucks, they got some nice bench seating, but then the tables have these chairs with no lower back support, only on the upper back. And that really is uncomfortable to sit at for an extended period of time.
You know, I had to go to the Apple store like 2 weeks ago, maybe, and I was thinking about that while I was sitting there. And obviously, you know, they don't want to make you wait that much longer than whenever you set your appointment. But because you're basically on stools, I was just thinking they must have put the stools here so that people don't just like sit there and try their things. And like people that just need to be in the waiting area are sitting at those stools waiting for the genius people, and that's it.
It's so funny you mentioned that because I did the Vision Pro demo at an Apple store a few months ago. And when I was sitting down in the Vision Pro demo area, those chairs have backs. And I think it's because it's to help you
get discombobulated, right?
Exactly. So you don't fall backwards. There's also fewer hangout options for teens. Think of like a mall. A lot of malls have been shuttering, or people simply aren't going to malls anymore because we can do all that shopping on Amazon. So fewer hangout options for those teens can lead to less unstructured socializing. And that's the fun of a mall. Or when I used to live near Disneyland, we would just go to Disneyland just for the heck of it and just hang out. Stuff like that has been disappearing. And then there's also been concerns over safety, just being out and about. It can be, unfortunately, pretty dangerous.
Yeah, it makes me think of when we talked about the lack of spaces designed for preteens back on episode 2 of this season. So that would have been earlier this year, but it's kind of the result, or the result of that is that preteens are now starting to show up in more, you know, quote, adult spaces. I think a lot of where we've seen people complaining about that is when it comes to beauty stores like Sephora. You know, the preteens showing up in there and like engaging in like trying to use products that really are designed for more mature skin, but also, wrecking the sampler items that are available for people and, creating like an environment in the store that not everybody is super crazy about. But the sad thing is it's like, well, when I was a preteen, I didn't feel like I needed to go to those spaces because I had other places to go. If I hadn't, I probably would have.
Part of me also wonders too, would people of that age be fully engaged in these spaces anyway because they're so consumed by their phones?
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like that was one benefit growing up in a world that didn't have cellular devices when we would go to these places. Like, I feel like no matter where you go now, everybody has a cell phone and everybody is always distracted from the reason why they go to a place to begin with, right? You go to a bowling alley, for example, you go to a billiards hall, for example, how many people are you going to be able to look around the room or on their phones instead of talking to other people or engaging in conversation? So
Laura, you mentioned seeking ideas for third spaces, and it sounds like, with the exception of Pam, you've been going to the library. It's just me and you that have maybe found a new third space recently. Third space I joined a few months ago was a book club and meets once a month, but it's one I found through Meetup and a friend who had told me about this particular book club. And it's been really nice because I'm meeting people who I wouldn't have otherwise. And it's the nice thing about a book club is it motivates you to continue reading a book and to read it in a quickish amount of time. Because it's like, okay, I got to get this book done by this date or else I won't be able to talk about the book at the meeting. And this club is very open to like, oh, if you don't finish it, no big deal. But it is still nice to have that deadline to hit. So that's been a nice benefit of being in this book club. And also, I only see these people during book club, and that's it. And that's great because I don't want any more social commitments besides this once a month.
Until they follow you on Instagram and slide into your DMs.
The leader of the book club did, so now he knows too much about me.
Oh, no. He's going to ask you to lead book club on the new Hunger Games prequel, and you're actually going to have to finish it.
Honestly, the next time you go to book club, they're probably just going to play the What the Hype music, just like they did to Micah.
Okay, let me go lock down my Instagram account, and when we're back, we're going to talk about spaces we might join in the future. So in terms of other ideas, like if we were aspiring to add a new space, maybe this is where we can help Laura, what would we pick? Laura, do you have any ideas?
So something that I've actually been looking into and that I would like to do is getting a membership at my community rec center. And honestly, this is a good tip for anyone if you're looking for an affordable way to have a gym that you can go to. Most cities or counties will have some kind of community rec center that has a low cost membership, and they'll have basic equipment and like walking tracks and stuff and basketball courts and things like that. I mean, they tend to be pretty basic, but at the same time, it's just a good way to get out of the house and get some exercise, play a sport. They'll often have different kinds of classes that they host at rec centers too. So it's not all just athletics. They'll do like arts and crafts, and they'll have vendor fairs and all kinds of stuff. So I was actually thinking of trying to get more involved at my local community center, just as a way to get out of the house and try something new. I also have a particular spot, and this is where I'm going to be a gatekeeping bitch. I have a particular spot in Atlanta that I have loved for years. It just soothes me, calms my soul anytime I go there. But I actually haven't been since before COVID. Even after the pandemic ended, I just haven't gone because I fell out of the habit. But I'm going to go back. like this weekend, I'm committing to it. I will send y'all pictures of it, but I'm not going to talk about it here because I don't want other people to know about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, what the heck is this place? Can you give us a hint?
I mean, it's nothing like super special. It just speaks to my soul.
It's Publix. You're going to the food store. You're going to spend an
you're going to
extended
that
period
strip
there.
club with the lady that crushes beer cans between her booties.
The Claremont.
Yeah.
And lights up her titties on fire. Don't forget about that.
Exactly. Got to go watch some titties get lit on fire, crush some Coke
that
cans
sounds
between
pretty soothing
titties.
to me. So
yeah, I thought you were going to bring up Swinging Richards because that was another one I
mentioned
told
that
you all
one too.
about. I did learn that Swinging Richards closed during the pandemic, which is unfortunate.
Oh, R.I.P.
Micah, we'll have to introduce you to the strip club scene in Atlanta sometime. Yeah.
Can't wait.
It's great.
What the hype? Strip club episode.
Can you imagine?
After dark.
What's the deal about?
What's the hype about strip
What's
clubs?
the hype about strip clubs?
So another idea I've had is indoor rock climbing. And
that's fun.
It's a safe way to do that. You get in some physical activity. I've heard great things about the communities there. It's just, I don't want to pay for it. It's just another thing to pay for, you know?
Don't you go to parks? You can just do it by yourself, like out in the wilderness.
That's why I want an indoor rock climbing center, because it's all kind of set up. Yeah.
And like something soft to fall onto.
Exactly.
I'm sure REI can gear you up with your co-op membership.
Yeah, what would be cheaper, buying all the rock climbing equipment for like Red Rock here in Nevada, or just going to a rock climbing center indoors? I think
I used to do indoor rock climbing a lot as a teenager. I was super into that, and like would legitimately, like when we were traveling, if I was ever trying to find something to do just by myself, I would go rock climbing. Maybe I should get back into that.
Andrew, I'm surprised you didn't really mention it. It seems like a big third space for you is national parks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you could. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah. Or even just hiking in general, because when you're on a trail, you're passing by lots of people, and everybody always says like good morning to each other. And I love that. Good morning. Good morning. Everybody's so happy.
Polite people. Yeah.
Yeah. You see each other's dogs and you're like, oh, your dog's so cute. So yeah, blah, 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 blah.
You just have to watch out for the odd national park visitor who's there to murder you, because, you know, people do get murdered in national parks. And as a true crime aficionado, I feel like I have to be watching out for you, Andrew.
Thank you. What you don't realize is that I am the danger.
Ooh,
I
there you
knew
go.
it.
He's the guy who wants to make Horcruxes. Don't you remember this, Laura?
Yeah, that's true.
I will be putting together a What the Hype episode on Breaking Bad, and that will be my love letter to Breaking Bad, because I'm just obsessed with that
Can
show.
I be on that one?
Of course.
Okay,
of course.
yay.
Okay, well, we have some ideas here. We did get some feedback from one of our listeners, Sarah, who saw today's planning doc on Patreon. She said, one thing I wanted to point out as a millennial parent is that it is currently challenging for kids now to have a third place that they have freedom to play in. There's always an older Karen who is ready to yell at a group of kids who appears to not have a parent nearby. And HOAs are so prevalent, someone is always ready to complain about kids playing in the neighborhood. We get threatening notices about kids climbing trees. Also, the gym has turned into that third place for a lot of folks, where Starbucks was the OG aspirational third place. So, Sarah, I can definitely back you up on kids playing in a neighborhood. I am also in an HOA, and there's a neighbor here who is a total Karen, and sometime last year, she posted in our neighborhood Facebook group about kids playing outside of her house, not in her front yard. They were playing on the street in front of her house. And she said those kids should go play in our park because that's what the park is for. And she was like, oh, their ball is going to come up into the yard and maybe hit a window or something like that. The thing is, the park here is very close to homes. The park doesn't really allow any more space than the street would. What she didn't like is that the kids were playing in front of her house. she'd rather that ball hit a window by the park, not her house. And I was like, that is so like obvious your intent here.
Sounds
you just
like
don't want
Karen
them playing
needs a third space.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah,
I've
she
seen
does.
people people are so bitter these days. I've also seen people online complaining about kids doing like chalk art on the street. It's like, God, like
What?
how evil that you feel the need to complain about something that's going to wash off so
Right.
easily.
As soon as it rains, it's going to be gone.
I see chalk art when I'm like, walking my dog and stuff. It makes me so happy. It's like, oh, that's so sweet that like some kids had a lot of fun here.
Yeah, I really don't get it when people complain about kids being kids.
Yeah.
Like,
they could be in front of their computers. They're outside having fun.
Right. These are the same people that would complain about how back in their day there weren't computers and cell phones and video games and they had to be outside all the time playing, and how this generation could take a page out of their book. Well, they are taking a page out of the book and they're still getting shat on. So
yeah, you can't win.
You can't win. So
in hindsight, it does make me really appreciative of the neighbors we used to have, because we did have several neighbors in our cul-de-sac that just did not have kids at all. And they were so gracious about how late we would play outside, especially in the summertime, and how much noise we would make and stuff like that. And, balls going into their front yard or anything like that. They were just happy to see kids playing outside.
Window with like a baseball or a tennis ball or something like that.
And I'm sure your parents were like, it's fine, we'll pay for it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just like I don't know, like we grew up in a different time where, we had video games, but I feel like part of our youth was also being outside and doing different things that,
oh yeah,
like that was fun. Like I used to ride my bike all over the town I grew up in. That's how I got from one place to the other. And my friends taught me how to ride a bike. I didn't know, like I was so uncoordinated with it at first, but then that's how we would go do things,
Yeah.
Oh, the back part of our neighborhood growing up, there was like a ditch with tons of big rocks, and we would move these big rocks around to create like a little village, and we had these little rooms, and we made seats out of the rocks, and then there was a creek a little ways away, and we lived by that creek. We were always spending time outside. As kids.
You just unlocked a memory of like making clubhouses in random bushes and stuff.
Yes.
And it would always be like boys had like the shitty bush and the girls had this like great setup.
Yeah.
And then they would get jealous of like all the hard work we would put into our clubhouse, and then they would like steal it, and we would get so mad. Yeah.
Yeah. It was always magical when you found
a hollow,
a giant hollow bush that was big enough that you could actually walk into without having to duck down too much. And you would be in there and it's literally just branches and dirt. And you'd be like, look at how much space we have in here.
It's like, we're going to sleep out here tonight. Parents are like, no, you're not.
Yeah, no, you're not.
So as we wrap things up here, any tips from anyone about where or how to find a third space? I mentioned Meetup. Definitely check out Meetup. When I'm looking on like Reddit and people are asking how to find things to do, people always recommend Meetup. Like I mentioned, that's where I found my book club. But, poking around it, there's a lot of different events happening around town. Speaking of where to find events, go on Facebook, and we always sing the praises of Facebook groups. Search for Facebook groups that connect some of your passions with your area, like Las Vegas gamers, or Las Vegas hiking, or Las Vegas cooking, or Las Vegas book club. And then there's also local Discord channels too. I haven't had much success with this, but I've seen city-oriented Discord groups where a lot of events get organized.
Yeah, I've seen, I forget what the events are called. I know every city has them, but they'll usually
First Friday.
No.
Okay, never mind. Sorry.
I haven't heard of that. But you usually see it advertised on social media, and I've gone to a couple of things like, around Halloween last year, there was a random pop-up ghost story show that was happening at a local boudoir speakeasy. And it was really cool. It was just they got together a bunch of, local improvisers and actors, and they all got up on stage and told creepy ghost stories, and the ambiance in the room was really cool. And you got a certain number of drinks with your entry, and they would bring them around to you at certain points throughout the evening. And there were lots of jump scares and stuff. So I think looking out for, like you're saying, Andrew, events happening in your community that are up your alley can help a lot.
Yeah.
I got very drunk at that.
One other thing that kind of came to mind, because I think back to my college days, I used to go to like college basketball games all the time, or college football, college lacrosse. There was a minor league baseball team that wasn't too far away. And while professional sports can be very cost prohibitive, there are a lot of other sporting events that you can go to on a regular basis that aren't as costly, and you get to meet people there, right? Like, especially if if you buy season tickets to a minor league baseball team, right? They're probably pretty affordable, or you buy a ticket package. Don't want to say that you have to go all out and buy season tickets, but you buy a nice ticket package, you may get to know people that you're sitting nearby, and that can develop friendships that go beyond just being in the stadium. So that's something to think about as well.
Yeah, minor league baseball games, you can get in the door for $20-$25, at least here in Vegas. There's a great little stadium here.
Yeah.
It's a fun night out.
And some of them do really great deals too. Like, and again, I know I was in college back in 2004, 2005, but they do like dollar days. And I think a lot of them still do that.
I was just going to say that.
You get like dollar parking, dollar hot dogs, dollar burgers, dollar tickets. And, for $5 or $10, like, you have a pretty good time.
Here in Vegas, this Thursday at the stadium, $2 beer night.
Ooh.
Who's in? $2 beer night.
I know who's going. That guy.
No, but
Wait,
looking
what
at
night?
the
Thursday night, you can't go. You're busy.
Oh, right. Well, MuggleCast. Shit. No, but that's such a great point. There's always events happening at the minor league stadiums. Post-game fireworks, baseball glove giveaway, kids run the bases, all kinds of things. Also, trivia nights. I feel like that one
That's a good
is
one.
great.
I've been going to those more and more. I found a nice bar that does themed trivia. My friend Yuki and I did Gilmore Girls trivia about 2 weeks ago now. So
Chef's
fun.
kiss.
So nice.
Yeah. And you could tell people were like super fans based on the names they chose and how obscure the references were. It was great.
See, and that's amazing. I love the themed trivia nights because everybody there is probably going to be really into Gilmore Girls. And that's such an easy way to connect with people before or after or in between the rounds, because sometimes it takes a while for them to score. There's going to be that uncomfortable part where you got to put yourself out there a little bit and be like, hey, y'all, how big of a fan of Gilmore Girls are you? Or I don't know, a sexier pickup line than that. But a great way to be around like-minded people. All right. We gave some people some ideas. Let us know. Where can we find third spaces? Contact us in all the usual ways.
Please, I need help.
Yeah. Well, let's get an update from you next week, Laura.
Yeah, I will
Your
give you
secret
one.
third space.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely going to start going again.
Every week now, Andrew's going to be like, Laura, like, how's the rec center? Did you sign up?
What'd you order from
know.
Publix today in their little cafe area?
Oh, God. I really do love Publix. It's not a joke.
I know.
I wouldn't make it my third space, but it is elite. I've never been to a grocery store that compares, to be perfectly honest. You can fight me.
All right. Enough. What's happening in After Dark this week, Laura?
So we're actually going to be talking about this fun parody article from the New Yorker called The Millennials Lament. And we're going to be using it as a jumping off point to talk about how millennials are no longer the prime demographic when it comes to who's being marketed to or what the trends are in terms of voting, who qualifies as the youth voters, and kind of what it feels like for our moment in the sun. Those prime years of being the quote young generation have now passed us by, and how kind of like a mind fuck it is to think about things that feel like happened just yesterday, but actually happened like 10 or 15 years ago. So we're going to chat about that. It'll be fun. Not at all a bummer. It's going to be more, I think, of like a nice little walk down memory lane, but also being incredulous about how quickly that time passed us by, and like everything that happened that really feels like it wasn't that long ago. So it should be fun.
And I'm going to share ways I'm going to become more youthful. I have some thoughts.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about Botox.
After Dark is part of Mega Millennial, which you can get every week when you're a patron or an Apple Podcast subscriber. Plus, it's ad-free. Visit patreon.com/millennial to pledge today, and Spotify users will be able to find a banner at the top of the show page, or Apple Podcast users can tap into the show and subscribe.
We also have other Patreon benefits like live stream access, our monthly Zoom hangout, a new physical gift every year, and more. It's easy to get started. Apple Podcasts and Patreon offers 7-day free trials and annual subscription discounts.
And now it's time for recommendations. This recommendation actually comes from my pale boyfriend, Pat. He recently purchased these Spot My UV detection stickers. So how this works is you put one of these very small patches on like your arm, you put on suntan lotion, you go outside and you tan. And when the patch changes colors, that's when it's time to put on more suntan lotion. So it helps you keep track of how often you're reapplying suntan lotion and when it is time to do so.
Oh, shit. I am also pale, so I will be getting these.
It's a clever little idea.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really into them. And what's kind of cool is like, if I'm with him, then I know when it's time to reapply too.
It's so funny. I just reapply like clockwork every 2 hours because I'm paranoid.
Smart.
I wanted to recommend the Noteful app on iOS. I think they have it on Android too. I switched over to digital planning this year. So I've been doing all of my normal planning on my iPad, but I definitely am somebody that enjoys the actual writing part of keeping a planner. So this was like a happy medium because I'm just able to use like a stylus, or I have the Apple Pencil. So I still get like, you know, the joy of writing things out into my schedule without actually having a paper planner that's really heavy and takes up a lot of space. But yeah, I know a lot of people use, I think it's called GoodNotes, to digital plan, but their subscription is a little pricey. You can't really buy the app outright. You can buy the Noteful app outright, and I think it's only $5. So it's a nice little happy medium if you want to check out what digital planning can do for you. But yeah, I've been using it for 6 months now and planning on my iPad and really enjoying it. You can make like different notebooks too to take notes. So like I have a notebook for both our podcasts now, so I can like jot down ideas if I'm out and about. And if you upgrade to the paid version, then you can, it'll sync up with your phone too. So you can kind of like have a smaller version of your digital planner or your notebooks on your phone if you don't take your iPad everywhere.
I only accept this recommendation because we just officially sold out of all of our Millennial adulting planners. So there's no other choice.
That's why I waited.
Oh.
I'm lying. I actually completely forgot.
I would like to recommend season 4 of The Boys, which, as I mentioned earlier, is premiering this Thursday, June the 13th. First 3 episodes are dropping. And, you know, it's going to be a good day if you're a fan of The Boys and or Bridgerton. I'm going to be well fed that day because there's a lot of TV I'm going to have to catch up on, but I'm looking forward to it.
Micah, do you have a recommendation for everybody?
Sure. Besides What the Hype, actually I have been reading this book called The Mindful Body, Thinking Our Way to Chronic Health. It's by Ellen Langer. And what's really interesting about this book is, well, first off, she's an American professor of psychology at Harvard University. And she talks a lot about how adjusting your thoughts can change your health and how stress is really at the root of almost all disease. So there's a lot of different studies that she's done over her 40-year career. I think listeners might find it kind of interesting.
That does sound good. I'm reading some popular highlights from the book on Amazon now, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Events are neither good nor bad. It is our thoughts that make them so.
Yeah, I would actually recommend even listening to a podcast with her or watch a YouTube video of her. She's very engaging, and she uses a lot of the same examples, which you would expect, probably having done the number of podcasts that she did to promote the book. But she has a lot of famous studies, I think, that people will recognize.
Cool. So we'll have to ask her on the pod, is what you're saying.
Yeah, let's have her on. What the hype?
No, on this
or
podcast.
Or Millennial. Okay, sure.
Well, thanks, Micah, for coming on, and we will catch you over on MuggleCast and What the Hype. All right, listen up, pals. It's time to give you a few reminders. Make sure you're following the show in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode, and we would love a review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
To stay in touch with us, email millennialshow@gmail.com or visit millennialshow.com. While you're there, you'll also find links to all of our social media profiles. So go and give us a follow on those various platforms. And Spotify users can also leave feedback directly within an episode.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. After Dark will start in a moment for patrons and Apple Podcast subscribers. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
I'm Pamela.
And I'm Micah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.